A lawyer accused of hate speech has been elevated to a judge of the Madras High Court with last minute high drama in the Supreme Court. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our big focus today is on the elevation of Victoria Gowri. Ms. Gowri was formerly a member of the BJP. She's a lawyer whose name was recommended by the Collegium for elevation to the rank, of course, of judge. Then lawyers at the Madras High Court started protesting. They even wrote to the president. A petition in the Supreme Court charged that she'd been guilty of making hate speeches, including inflammatory comments against both Muslims and Christians. In fact, in an open court, the Chief Justice of India, who's a part, of course, of the Collegium, said that certain facts came to light only after her name had already been recommended. But a last minute hearing in the Supreme Court, very dramatically, just a few minutes before she was scheduled to be sworn in as a judge at the Madras High Court, asked that her elevation be stalled. Senior advocate Raju Ramachandran led the arguments, but the Supreme Court eventually did not agree. Justice Khanna, dismissing the petition, said that there was a difference between eligibility and suitability, and since suitability was a subjective argument, there was no end to opening the Pandora's box. A collegium's recommendation, the Supreme Court thus held, is final. But of course, the debate around this decision will not stop. Like I said, it was extreme high drama before the Supreme Court delivered its verdict. Let's introduce our guests on the program today as we look at the ramifications of what's happened today. Remember, this has got a lot of attention because it's taking place against the backdrop of a larger fight between the center and the Modi government over who should appoint judges. Well, Ms. Gowri is a collegium choice, not a government choice. Let's be very clear about that. And the collegium has stood by its own decision, as it were. Let's introduce our guest on the program today. Joining us from Tamil Nadu is lawyer and politician advocate S. Balaji. Welcome to the program, sir. Also joining me today is Sanjoy Ghosh, well-known lawyer and rights activist. Good to see you right outside the Supreme Court in his robes. Also joining us, Rahul Ishwar, of course, a political analyst and a commentator. Also joining us is Justice Ganguly. Justice Ganguly, of course, retired as a judge of the Supreme Court. And finally joining us from Tamil Nadu today is senior leader of the BJP, Shrikantji. Good to see you, all of you. Justice Ganguly, let me actually start with you. High drama in the Supreme Court. At 10:30 a.m., the Supreme Court was hearing the case. At 10:35, Ms. Gowri was supposed to be sworn in as a judge at the Madras High Court. Eventually, the Supreme Court decided to stay with the collegium's choice. Are you surprised, or do you think the Supreme Court could have done anything differently? Raju Ramachandran did cite one case where there was precedent for this having happened. Go ahead, Justice Ganguly.
No, in that case, there was a question on the ground of eligibility. Eligibility is an objective criteria, whereas suitability is decided subjectively. Whether a person, an advocate, is suitable or not for elevation to the post of a High Court judge is a different question from a question whether he has put in, say, 10 years of practice, whether he is a citizen of India. These are objective criteria which can be decided. If there is any lacking, the candidate falls short of achieving this criteria, then the court can stall the appointment. But where the question is on the point of suitability, which is based on subjective assessment of the candidates becoming eligible for High Court appointment as a High Court judge, these are the areas where it is very difficult for the Supreme Court to interfere on the judicial ground and from the judicial front.
But Justice Ganguly, may I interrupt you, but just to say that there is what is called, as the cliche goes, the letter of the law with the spirit of the law. And the petitioners made the argument that Ms. Gowri's earlier comments, not her political affiliation, the lawyers made it clear they had no problem with earlier political affiliations, but her comments on Islam and Christianity. And let's bring up what the petition says about those comments if we can. Justice Ganguly, what about the fact that someone who's been accused of having made inflammatory comments on Muslims and Christians will now be a judge? Can we please bring up that graphic, please? Justice Ganguly, go ahead. Sir, you're on mute, sir. 1 minute. Please unmute Justice Ganguly. Sir, you're on. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I think,
yeah, go ahead, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to hear the comment of the Honorable Chief Justice that the Honorable Chief Justice is not aware of this article or the contents of that article. But the first thing is such appointment originated from Madras High Court. The Madras High Court should have been more careful. If there are some articles, such articles which are attributed to her, have been written by her, and she has openly expressed opinion against some minority persons believing in some minority religion, then I don't think she's the ideal person to be chosen for being appointed a judge of the High Court. There should have
Mhm.
been much more serious, if I may say so, looking into the facts and the records.
But
They
are
should
you
have
saying,
ascertained
but
his
are you
views.
saying, are you saying therefore that she should not be judged if she's made these comments, but once the collegium gave the approval or gave the reference, it was too late? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the Honorable Chief Justice says we didn't know about it. I mean, that is what you told us.
Well, today Justice
They
Khanna
could
said,
not,
well, today Justice Khanna
the
said, let's not assume that we didn't know. So there's a contradiction there.
no, no, that contradiction is very unfortunate. But let us look at what was said by the Honorable the CJI. CJI said that this was not brought to their notice. There should be a better homework by the collegium and the judges who are manning the collegium before a person is elevated. It's a very
Well,
serious exercise.
Well, that's the
It's a
point,
very
right? At
serious
a
exercise.
time, Justice Ganguly, when you say there should have been better homework by the Collegium, this comment from Justice Ganguly comes at a time when the Collegium has been fighting to preserve its autonomy over the appointment of judges. So let's be clear, Ms. Gowri is a choice of the Collegium, not of anybody else. Shrikant ji, if I can get your response there. Now, again, of course, Ms. Gowri is reported to have been earlier a member of Shrikantji, I think we just lost you. So let me just take the same comment to Advocate Balaji, who's, of course, a politician and a lawyer. Advocate Balaji, how do you see this comment? Advocate Balaji. Sir, we can't hear you. No, sir, I can't hear you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can.
My
Go ahead, sir.
personal opinion or my point is that we are opposing. Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
My point is that we are not objecting hello? We are not objecting the nomination or appointment of a judge of Gowri that Madam Gowri that she is from BJP. Our point is that
Yes.
her expression and the integrity of the person being appointed as a judge, because earlier also we have seen many cases where political personalities have been appointed as judges. In fact, he can't even avoid that, because every individual will be backed up by some opinion or some ideology. So that is not the
Hmm.
point here. But the way she had expressed her views and how she had been exercising her speech and other things are the question. And in that way, we are opposing the appointment of Ma'am Gowri as the judge of Chennai High Court. It is only in that
Mhm.
context. See, even in the assembly, you happen to have a speaker who belongs to a particular political party. But as soon as he sits in that
Yes.
chair, he happens to exercise neutral person, and only few speakers happen to be taken for criticism or something like that. But in this case, her speeches in the past and her performance as a political personality has drawn very hard criticism, that she had been very expressively showing hatred against the
Yes.
other
So
religious
I
people.
think
This is what is
I
a
think
big
that's
concern.
Yes, I think that's a very important point that you make, because again and again it is being presented as if her being from the BJP is a problem. And again, Raju Ramachandran in the Supreme Court argued. And in fact, one of the judges hearing the case said, even I've had a political affiliation earlier. How does that matter? And the lawyers were very clear that her being from a political party, one or the other, was not the issue. Rahul Ishwar, before I get Sanjoy and Shrikantji of the BJP, who I hope will be able to reconnect, I want your take. You see, what's happening is there are two strands to this debate. There is a center versus collegium fight. But this is a collegium choice. And as Justice Ganguly says, the collegium, in his opinion, did not do its homework. Rahul Ishwar, can we unmute Rahul, please? Yeah.
Barkhaji, as a student of law and a social observer, I would like to humbly submit we should be very honest about these kind of things rather than being politically correct. Even if you look at US, there are right-leaning judges, there are centrist judges, there are left-leaning judges. As we all know, Victoria Gowri ji is more of a right-leaning person. And I was very happy being a right-winger that she even expressed her gratitude to Mada Amridanandamayi, who's a Hindu spiritual guru from Kerala, we all adore. So she is a more of a right-leaning choice. That doesn't mean she will be a partial or she will be a partisan. Similarly, there are liberal judges. Similarly, there are conservative judges. In US, they are very open about it. So we all know that Victoria Gowri is more of a right-leaning person. Second, what she said about Christians and Muslims, I don't think it will fall on the category of a hate speech because she was pointing out the dangers of Islamism. She was pointing out the dangers of conversionism. Even the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, said we need an anti-conversion law. And that's a position Mahatma Gandhi had nearly 80 years ago. So there are genuine inhibitions regarding
But
conversion.
Rahul, she was using phrases as reported in the affidavit, like green terror and white terror. I mean, that's a very inflammatory broad stroke to make about an entire community, right?
I partially concede, but India is a land where people lavishly use words like saffron terror. I don't believe any color should be attributed to any region or terror. But at the same point of time, saffron terror is a word we use. White or I wouldn't use that. Being a person myself, consider myself a Gandhian. But I definitely believe we should be more tolerant to a diverse spectrum of judges coming from various political positions, and that's a reality of
So
modern
that's a very
democracy anywhere in the
interesting
world.
point. That's a very interesting point. I can see Srikanji back with me, but let me just bring in Sanjoy Ghosh. That the American example, where judges are for life, but their politics are evident. Their politics are in the public domain. Again, I say the lawyers who wanted Ms. Gowri's petition sort of elevation to be stopped kept saying this is not about her being from the BJP. But I have a larger question here, Sanjoy. This is a time when the collegium is at loggerheads with the government over how judges should be appointed. Justice Ganguly just said the collegium did not do its homework. Now, if the collegium hasn't done its homework, how will the collegium be able to really argue assertively and credibly for the autonomy of appointing judges? Sanjoy Ghosh.
Right, Barkha. So there is one important factor which we are missing out over here, and that is this: that let us not forget that a year back, the same collegium of the Supreme Court had recommended a Christian candidate, and that name went to and fro because he had forwarded some article critical of the Prime Minister. Now, if you recall, that name was reiterated just last month, and the collegium itself said that you must appoint this gentleman before you appoint Victoria Gowri and the other candidates recommended in January this year. So these recommendations are almost a year after that recommendation. Now, the government conveniently does not respond to that reiteration. That gentleman is not appointed, and instead this batch led by Justice Victoria Gowri stand appointed. So where is the collegium standing up for its own orders? Where is the collegium standing up for its own dignity, for the own autonomy, and for the three judges case, which clearly said that the consultation is binding consultation and the executive can't pick and choose that consultation. So in fact, for me, it is not as much as the individual, which party she is from, what hate speech she is or she is not uttering or using. It is about the institution. So, at one stage, we have to call a spade and say that, look, you can have this kind of so-called battle happening and the people are, forming into two camps, pro-collegium, pro-NJAC or pro-executive. But let's be very clear what is happening. And the elephant is in the room for all to see what's happening. And it's a sad day for judicial autonomy.
A sad day for judicial autonomy. A Christian judge treated a different way for forwarding or sharing an article critical about the Prime Minister. I must try and get Srikant ji of the BJP again. I hope, sir, you can hear me. Please go ahead with your thoughts if you can.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my views. One thing is, we are talking about a sitting judge now, because now she has assumed office, and 3-4 hours before she has become a judge, and she has been selected by the collegium. Now it is not a government appointment, and what I personally feel is the learned lawyers and senior judges are there in the panel. See, just because she had some ideology earlier, she cannot be denied of her talents, because she has got all the eligibility. Those criteria they have to consider when she is having enough experience in her discipline and when she's competent enough to become a lawyer, just because of her ideology she had earlier, because if this is made as a rule, I think only deaf and dumb can become judges, because nobody can tell anything, no? Because
But Shrikantji, the problem is not the lawyer said that she was from the BJP earlier, but that she made very inflammatory speeches against religious minorities, Muslims and Christians among them.
yeah, yeah, I saw those things, because those are the about Islam, about terrorism, love jihad, and about Bharatanatyam. It was coming on card, because those are the statements she has given earlier, and that was her views earlier, and just because of that she had those kind of views, and she was expressing that, and there is no proof. One has to prove that, and the collegium must have considered everything if it is put before the collegium, and now she has been elevated, and how she is performing from here, from now, how she is performing from here, because everybody is an individual. अंदर में तो उनको कुछ आइडिया तो होगा ही, but the thing is, for her case, no, just because she is from BJP, lot of hue and cry is happening. This would have not been happened to any other जो minority के बारे में बोल रहे हैं ना. If those people have become a judge like this with few comments, I don't think this would have become so big.
Okay, let me bring in Sanjoy briefly before I go back to Justice Ganguly. Let me bring back Sanjoy before I go back to Justice Ganguly. Sanjoy, you said that it's a sad day for judicial autonomy. What would you have expected the Supreme Court to do? Justice Ganguly says this is something for the Collegium to have, taken note of before her name was recommended for elevation. Once it was, Sanjoy, what could they have done?
That's a very good question, Barkha, and let me answer it right away. Now, at one level, Justice Khanna is absolutely right that as a junior judge, a bench of two junior judges, it is inappropriate judicially and also ethically for them to second guess the collegium. And they, of course, reserve for themselves a very restrictive test of eligibility. Now, let's break down what eligibility means. Under the Constitution, the only eligibility has to be a citizen of India and 10 years practice as an advocate to be a judge of the High Court. So if the court is saying we only have to see whether she's a citizen of India and whether she has 10 years of practice as an advocate, that's all we will see. Or she has not been convicted in any court, or that she's not an undischarged insolvent in any insolvent proceeding. So that is all. So the court reserves itself only this limited scrutiny. It says we will not go into the suitability issue. These are all subjective, and this is by the expert domain of the collegium. Now, let me make it very clear what I feel the Supreme Court should have done. The Supreme Court should have, and as I said, it's not so much as this individual case. And, let's not kid ourselves that the court does not have inputs from the state government, from the Intelligence Bureau, and from all sides, including leaders of the bar in advance. Be that as it may, the Honorable Chief Justice has said that the collegium was not aware of these things. The other important thing is that this recommendation was going through without going through with the previous recommendation of appointing the Christian judge. The collegium is an administrative body. It should have sat judicially. There should have been a constitution bench of the 5 senior most judges of the Supreme Court, and in one voice they should have taken action and said that this is the Supreme Court as an institution which is under attack. If you are going to render our binding recommendations worth not even the paper is written on, it is an attack on
this is their binding recommendation, Sanjoy. This is their binding recommendation.
No, Barkha. The binding recommendation is the previous recommendation of the Christian judge saying that you appoint him first.
I see.
And only after you appoint him, then you will give.
I see. So sorry, you're referring to the earlier case. Yes, got it. Yes. So I think what you're saying is that the Supreme Court Collegium did not assert autonomy when it came to that recommendation, and today you feel it buckled further. Is that what you're saying?
No. So therefore, what the Supreme Court reiterated in January when it sent Justice Gowri's name, it said appoint Justice Gowri after you appointed that Christian judge. He should be appointed first because we had recommended his name last April, 1 year ago. So you have now not only not appointed him, even if he's in future appointed, he'll be a junior to this judge. So you have completely disregarded the binding recommendation of the collegium. And this was a reiterated recommendation. So under the 3 judges' case, as Justice Ganguly will tell you, this was a binding recommendation on the
Justice
executive.
Ganguly, Justice Ganguly, I think what Sanjoy is saying is one, double standards, that a Christian judge was not elevated, not accepted by the government because he shared an article critical of the Prime Minister, is the allegation. Two, the fact is that the Collegium did not assert itself there. Three, you say it did not do its homework before the elevation of Ms. Gowri. As Srikanji points out, she's a judge now. We all also have to be we have to watch our words when we actually critique her going forward. My question is, has the Collegium therefore destroyed its credibility? And if it has, or at least damaged, destroyed is a big word, weakened its credibility. And if it has, what will that do to the larger debate around Collegium versus government? Justice Ganguly. Can we unmute Justice Ganguly, please? Sir, you are muted, sir, at your end. Sir, you're muted at your end if you can hear me. And while you figure that out, let me just get Advocate Balaji.
Is
Yeah,
it,
there you
is
go.
it,
Go ahead.
is it okay now?
Yes, go ahead.
No, I don't think that the Collegium has lost or damaged its credibility. But what I want to point out is that when the Chief Justice makes this comment, my apprehension is there was something lacking in its preparedness, in the sense that it must do it, as I have told you, the appointment of a judge is a very, very serious business. Therefore, here the Chief Justice can ill afford to say what he has said. He has been very honest enough to say that we did know these facts. This should not have happened. Number one. And number two, you are now extending the area of controversy by saying there was a previous appointment in respect of a Christian judge about a year ago, and that has been ignored by the government, and they have given primacy to the later appointment of Justice Gowri. I mean, that should not have been happened. In matters of priority, they should have recommended and honored the first recommendation made earlier. That is certainly a question of dignity of the Collegium. There I agree with Mr. Ghosh. What is the government's explanation for ignoring that?
What is the Collegium's explanation for not asserting itself also? Government can be asked this question, but the Collegium could have drawn a red line as it did last week when it sent a letter saying you need to appoint the judges we've recommended.
I entirely agree that Collegium should have been more assertive.
The Collegium should have been more assertive. The government has betrayed double standards. Yes.
Before you recommend our recommendation A, you must give effect to a recommendation earlier than that.
Right. Let me actually bring in now Shrikant ji for a brief comment, and then I'll come to Rahul and Advocate Balaji. Shrikant ji, you say that political ideology, you can't actually be looking at people's ideologies. Oh, we lost Shrikant ji. Rahul, do you want to just jump in there? Rahul?
Yeah, no, I beg forgiveness from Ashok Ganguly for saying this, he being such a senior. But we all know there is a process of balancing. There is a community, there is a social, everything balancing. Whatever appointment in India, it's all kept in mind. That's the reason why we keep on referring to Advocate John Satyan as the Christian judge. So there is a process of balancing that goes in India, even though it is not told outside. It's a reality that everyone knows goes here. And right now, as I earlier told, yeah, I'm a proud right-winger. I know that Victoria Gowri is more of a right-winger, but that doesn't mean she will be partial or she will be biased. See, that's the reason why we should be following the American model of political honesty when we appoint judges or when we discuss about judges. We all know that Justice Chandrachud, who I really admire, is more of a liberal person. We all know that Justice Bobde was more of a dharmic, right-leaning person, whatever name you want to call it. See, these are interpretation of the policy matters. That doesn't mean when it comes to a criminal case, they will be safeguarding anybody from right or left. It only means there is a broader jurisprudence interpretation or philosophical overview or ideological underpinnings that happens in their worldview. And that is absolutely acceptable. One issue with Indians is we try to smuggle our ideology behind our words, beneath our sentences. We should be more open and honest. And I believe Victoria's...
See, Rahul, I think there's no better example before us than the former Chief Justice, Justice UU Lalit, at one point represented Mr. Amit Shah and later was the judge who gave Teesta Setalvad bail. I don't think it's about ideology. I understand what you're saying, that judges in the chair have to be bound by precedent and the spirit and the rule of law. But in this case, Advocate Balaji, what the petitioners argued was that Ms. Gowri's beliefs were not constitutional. And therefore, there was a problem. It's again and again, I'm saying it's not about political leaning, Rahul. That's the point I'm trying to make again and again. So, Balaji, sir, if you want to come in on that. Mr. Balaji.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ironically, the people who say that we are all opposing Honorable Justice Gowri's appointment, these are the people who are supporting the rejection of the unit. Sent a report stating that
Sorry, sir, you're not clear. You're not clear, sir. I'm going to ask you to reconnect and bring Shrikant ji in. We're having a terrible day with connections. Shrikant ji, if you can hear me, I'm going to let you make a comment. Go ahead. Can you hear me, sir? Okay, it seems nobody. Yes, it seems nobody can hear me today. So Rahul, do you want to?
I'm not able to hear.
We can hear you now. We can hear you now. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm without hearing you. I'm talking without
okay.
some technical error here. Well, what I wanted to say is she was earlier a member, and long before she has resigned from the party, and she was not in the party, and BJP is not a banned party. It was not a terrorist organization, and she was there. I know very well, and she was giving her views and opinions. As a judge, also everybody is going to give their opinions about various issues, and those times we used to respect it. Even a judge, before becoming a judge, if they have given some comments about a few things, and we have to value it, what she has said it, because she didn't have any biased or prejudiced comments, those are. And I was just going through the Supreme Court order. They have gone through all the complaints, what they have received on Honorable Judge Gowri Madam, because they have considered every complaint and they have taken this decision. And just because she is from the right wing ideas she has expressed earlier, I think from the other factions, they are making a huge cry over this. And I think we have to respect the words and the position what she is having. From here, what she is going to do it, that is most important, I think. We have to wait and see.
Thanks, Shrikant ji. I know you can't hear me, so I'm just hoping you can say by saying thank you. I just want to get last comments in now from Justice Ganguly and Sanjoy. Ghosh, what does this do to the larger Collegium versus Centre battle? This is not about one judge and her beliefs. This is the Collegium's autonomy, and as Justice Ganguly said, dignity at stake, as it were. Sanjoy, do you want to come in, just jump in, and I'll give Justice Ganguly the last word. Sanjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that we are at a very critical juncture. The Collegium, several recommendations have been reiterated. Those recommendations are pending. In fact, please understand the context of this, the elephant in the room. Last year itself, the Collegium had recommended the transfer of a very, very capable Chief Justice of Orissa as Chief Justice of Madras. And that recommendation is languishing, which is why today Madras High Court is headed by an acting Chief Justice. So today is very clear and crystal clear why this recommendation of the Chief Justice of Justice Muralidhar for Madras High Court has not been activated. Of course, this is our second guess because we don't know, because the recommendation strangely is pending for months and months and months. So therefore, at the end of the day, let's be very clear. It is absolutely in the hands of the Supreme Court. The nation is watching. Today, it is very difficult for parties to fool each other. The social media is active. People are active. The young law students, lawyers, young citizens of the country are very alert, very intelligent, and they are seeing what's happening. I will request both the Law Minister and the Honorable Chief Justice to put their heads together. Think of, Mahatma Gandhi said that when you're in trouble, think of the poorest person and think how your actions will affect the poorest person. I request both these constitutional authorities to think of that poor litigant. I'm standing in front of a court. Think of those poor litigants. Please bury your egos, bury the hatchet, and please, for God's sake, give merit, give transparency, and give autonomy a chance. Please don't tinker with the constitution like this. It's a very, very sincere, apolitical plea from the bar to you, sir.
Yeah, I think that's very important. This public squabbling is not good for the health of our democracy. Justice Ganguly, I just have a last question for you. If you were in the Supreme Court today serving on the bench, what would you do if this petition came to you last moment this morning? What would you have done?
It is very difficult to say what I would have done. But I would have always remembered one thing, that justice is rooted in confidence. And I would have done my best to enhance the confidence of the litigant public in the system of justice. This much I can say. What I would have
Okay.
done, I can't say. I can't predict.
We have to leave it
But
there, but I think yes, sorry, sir, were you trying to add a point there?
but the learned judges have said one thing which is very important, that Justice Gowri is appointed an additional judge. Her performance will be watched when the Supreme Court will be giving her the confirmation. So she's for 2 years or so, her appointment will be watched. And
Okay.
let us hope and pray that she rises up to the expectation of a fair judge during these years.
That's a very important detail, that she will be under observation, as it were, and that is an important point. Thanks, Justice Ganguly, for flagging it. But the larger point is we just simply cannot have the elected government and the collegium squabbling in the manner that it has in public. I think Sanjoy Ghosh is correct in saying the law minister and the chief justice need to get together and draw their respective Lakshman Rekhas in a way that the autonomy is preserved, but so is the spirit, as it were, of our constitution. Thank you very much, Shrikant ji, Sanjoy Ghosh, Rahul Ishwar, Justice Ganguly, and to Advocate Balaji. Thank you to our audience for watching. See you tomorrow. Take care. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.